Welcome back. Well, as a follow-up to my previous video, every car has good and bad, and so today we're going to be covering the top 5 things I hate about my Subaru Outback. So we'll start off with number 1. The seats are horrible. They are basically park benches with a little bit of padding. They don't have any side bolsters to speak of. They're just kind of flat, and they have a lumbar support, but it's not that great. And I've never really, had good luck with lumbar adjustments in seats. Yeah, they're just not that comfortable. I mean, they're okay on longer drives. I've sat in worse seats, but they're just, they're wide and they're just blah. Alright, so now for the second thing I hate about my Subaru Outback is the handling. Yes, it is not a sports car, but you know what? You don't have to have a sports car to have a good handling vehicle. There's a lot of performance SUVs out there right now that handle way better than this ever will. It weighs like 4,000 pounds, probably a little bit more, and if you try to hustle it around a corner or just drive it anything other than a granny driving, the car tells you this big girl does not like to dance, and she tells you that. I've never really had the tires squealing, but it's just not an engaging car to drive. It's not designed for that, and I know that, but the one thing that wagons are supposed to be good at is to have the space of a larger vehicle. A lot of SUVs, it actually has more space than a lot of SUVs, and more space than a car, obviously, but still have the handling and the dynamics of a car. Well, this kind of has the handling and dynamics of a 3-row SUV. I mean, so there's no plus side to not having the size of a larger SUV. There's no plus side to having the bones and chassis of a car. So the handling just suffers because of that. It sits higher because people like to sit higher so that they feel like they can see better, except for everyone else is sitting higher now because everyone's driving SUVs anymore. It has a ride height so that you can get through bad weather, and that's fine and all, but you just lose things, and handling, and it's not confidence inspiring. So that's the second thing I hate about my Subaru Outback. The third thing I hate about my Subaru Outback is the transmission. It has a CVT, and as CVTs go, it's not one of the worst ones that's out there. It's one of the better ones. Subaru does a decent job with their CVTs. It will replicate gears under heavy acceleration. It will replicate gears to make you feel like you're getting somewhere, but they aren't real gears, obviously. And if you try to downshift to engine brake, like you would do going down a hill, so you don't have to use your brakes as much, it doesn't really engine brake because there's not really a solid link inside of the transmission between the engine and the drivetrain. So sometimes it'll engine brake, sometimes it won't. It depends on how it feels, and it doesn't matter the speed or what gear you put it in and things like that. It just doesn't feel great. And so, like, the benefit of a CVT supposedly is better economy. Well, this doesn't do that either. I average 22, 23 miles to the gallon with the 6-cylinder. Yeah, the 4-cylinder gets better economy, but it has a lot more downsides. It has a lot less power. It is a lot louder and thrashier of an engine because it's working a lot harder to move this thing because it's not light. And it doesn't make a lot of power. The economy isn't there because it's still working hard. Recently we had a loaner vehicle or a rental vehicle for a week when we were out in California, and that had a turbocharged 4-cylinder that made roughly the same amount of power as this. And it had roughly the same amount of power, roughly the same weight, felt a lot quicker, and got way better economy. We averaged about 30 miles to the gallon on that car during that week when we had it. The CVT takes all the fun out of the experience, and you don't get good fuel economy. So where is the upside to any of that, whether it be the engine or the transmission? And so the last thing that I dislike the most about this thing, and I've already kind of touched on it, is the power. It's a 3.6 liter engine, naturally aspirated. It makes about 250 horsepower. It's not great. There's an acceleration run. And there's 60. My wife has a 9-year-old car that has a 3.7 liter engine, basically the same size, and it makes 80 horsepower more and feels a heck of a lot quicker, and it weighs almost the same, and it gets the same economy. I got this engine because the 4-cylinder is not enough engine for this car. It weighs too much, it's loud and thrashy, and you are even struggling more to, accelerate into traffic than in this 6-cylinder. And so there isn't a good engine for this car. So that's the last thing that I hate about my Subaru Outback. I could go on. There are lots of other things that I like or that I don't like. My wife absolutely hates this vehicle. Granted, she's very picky, but it just doesn't fit our lives. It was one of the few options in wagons when we were in the market for a vehicle, which is why we chose it. We leased it so that if we didn't like it, we're not stuck with it for several years. And so we're glad we leased it because that was the optimal situation for us. So that's it. If you haven't already checked out the 5 things I do like about this car, I would check that out if you haven't already. Hopefully you've enjoyed the review. And thanks for joining in.